Hey Sirens, you already know it's your girl Sycrett Society, and this sacred circle is where we heal out loud and in color. I genuinely want to just go ahead and jump into this conversation.
You've reached the Sycrett Society's Unfiltered AF hotline.
At the tone, please record your message.
I want to talk about something that happens to almost everyone, and I've noticed that nobody really talks about it. You react to something, and almost immediately you think, wait, I thought I already dealt with that. Or maybe somebody says one thing, and you're tired, you're already stretched thin that day, and suddenly you're right back into a pattern you could have sworn you outgrew. And the worst part isn't even the reaction itself, it's what your brain does right after. It's like it takes that one moment and turns it into evidence. It's almost taunting you, like, see, you didn't change after all. You just got good at pretending. And truthfully, I don't buy that. Honestly, I think that that's one of the biggest lies we've internalized about healing. That it's supposed to be a straight line or a ladder. You deal with something, you move up a step. You deal with the next thing, you move up another step. And eventually, you're supposed to land on this finished version of yourself who doesn't struggle with that thing anymore. And that's just not how this works. It never was. I think it works more like a spiral. You come back around to the same wound more than once in your life, but you're not standing in the same place every time you get there. And I want to spend this episode actually sitting in that instead of saying it and moving on. Because here's where the staircase idea comes from. And I don't think it's your fault you believe it. Almost every healing story we are shown online is the finished products. We see the glow up, the boundaries finally being set, and the peaceful life. You don't see the Tuesday she or he cried in the car on their way to work. You also don't see the week the old insecurities crawled right back in for no known reason. And that's because you're watching someone else's highlight reel and quietly grading your own rough draft. And that's a setup that's going to make a completely normal setback feel like a full-on diagnosis. I've been doing this show for a year now, 27 episodes, and every once in a while I'll go back and listen to an old one. And it's a strange feeling because I don't hear a woman climbing a clean staircase. I hear myself still trying to figure it out in real time, even today, right now. There are episodes where I sound so sure of something, and then a few weeks later, I'm circling back to that exact same thing from a completely different angle, like I hadn't actually settled it the first time. Maybe I had just said it out loud convincingly. There are nights that you can hear in my voice where I was tired and still trying to find the words. And if I'm being honest, there are moments where I can tell I understood something in my head long before I understood it anywhere else. That's the part I think doesn't get talked about enough. I can explain a concept on here beautifully and still trip over it in my actual life. There's a difference between knowing something and embodying it in the same week, no less. And that's not hypocrisy. That's just how growth works. Knowing something intellectually doesn't automatically mean it's integrated. It doesn't mean your nervous system got the memo. For example, you can understand exactly why you people please and still catch yourself doing it before you even register what happened. You can know your worth isn't tied to someone else's opinion of you and still feel your stomach drop when they go quiet on you. So knowing it and living from it are two different stages. And most of us are somewhere in between most things most of the time. And I don't say that to excuse bad behavior. If you hurt someone, you still own that. Understanding yourself doesn't get you out of accountability, but there's a real difference between knowing better and still needing time to actually get there. So when I say I've lived this whole spiral idea out loud on camera for a whole year, That's what I mean. Not that I have some dramatic before and after to hand you, it's genuinely smaller than that and more honest than that would be. It's the sound of me knowing something and then slowly learning what to actually do with it when I'm the one who's triggered or hurt or embarrassed or scared, and that gap between the two is where most of the real work happens. And it's not glamorous and it doesn't make for a great highlight reel, which brings me back to setbacks because I think we've got the whole concept backwards. We treat a setback like it's automatic proof of failure, but sometimes a setback is actually the first time you're able to see the pattern clearly. Sometimes you catch it while it's happening instead of 3 days later when you're replaying the conversation in your head in the shower. Sometimes you catch it afterwards, but instead of spiraling into how could I do this again, you actually get curious. You ask what happened instead of deciding what it means about you. And sometimes, you might make the exact same mistake that you made the last time, but you understand why you made it. You can see the thread, and that's not nothing. That's you getting closer to the root instead of just managing the symptom. And look at what we do to ourselves when we think we're supposed to be further along than we actually are. Setback stops being a setback and becomes a verdict. Proof that you haven't changed. Proof the work didn't matter. Proof you were kidding yourself the whole time you thought you were healing, and now you're not just dealing with whatever actually happened. You're also on trial for the fact that it happened at all. Shame is not a good teacher. It doesn't make you better, it just makes you quiet. It makes you stop telling the truth about where you're actually at, even to yourself. So here's what I actually want you to hold on to, because I think this is the piece the original version of this was missing in my head. A setback and progress are not opposites. They can exist in the same week, sometimes even the same day. You can be proud of how far you've come and still have something you're actively in the middle of. You can know better and still occasionally not do better. And that's not a character flaw. That's just what being a person in progress actually looks like, especially when nobody's editing it into highlight reels. So the spiral. I keep coming back to it because I think it's the only honest way to describe this. You come back around to the same wound, but you're not the same person. Same trigger, different awareness. Same wound, different capacity to hold it. Same attention, but this time you make a different choice in the middle of it, even a small one. Same pain, but you recover from it differently. Maybe 3 days instead of 3 weeks. Maybe you don't need to explain yourself to 5 people to feel okay about it. Maybe you just know you're allowed to feel it and move through it. That's the whole shift. You're not trying to make the trigger disappear forever. You're trying to notice that you're not the same person it's showing up to. So maybe the question isn't, why am I still dealing with this? Maybe it's, what's different this time? That question does something the first one doesn't. It makes you go looking for evidence of where you've actually grown instead of evidence that you haven't. So here's what I want you to sit with this week. Think of one moment this year you filed away as a setback, a step backwards, or proof you haven't really changed. And instead of asking, what's wrong with me, ask what was different about how you moved through it this time. Even if it's small, even if it's just that you recovered faster, or you understood why it hurt, or you didn't disappear into it the way you used to, maybe you're not failing at healing. Maybe you're just still in it. And maybe seeing the pattern more clearly this time is its own kind of evidence, even if the pattern hasn't fully gone away yet. I want to know in the comments, what was that moment for you? I genuinely want to know. And if this one hit something in you, don't just sit with it quietly. Pass it along to somebody who needs to hear it too. Don't forget to hit the follow button so that you never miss a sacred circle when we come back around to heal out loud and in real time, in real color. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out so people can find their way into the circle with us. And as always, be you, be unshakable, and be unfiltered AF. The line is now closed.